Layovers, your weekly dose of aviation innovation.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello everybody, this is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience. Our flight time today, 1 hour and 1 minute, and we expect an on-time arrival. Coming up on this flight, the mystery of the British Airways flights avoiding French airspace. ANA flies the Star Wars crew from Los Angeles to London. No more hoverboards in planes. Kayak launches Snap, the SMS-based booking service. Atlanta reaches 100 million passengers in 2015. How many seats can you cram in a 747 or an A380? Disembarking a Boeing 737 with a ladder. Don't believe everything you read. MH132 didn't get lost in Australia. As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-cancelling headphones.
Flight 31 to Nice. Hi, Alex.
Nice, nice.
We must be the only goofballs to go to Nice in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good place to be in the winter, isn't it? It's on the Mediterranean coast. It should be not as cold as it is here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I used to work there. I'll tell the story at the end of the show. And going in the winter is really not the same thing as going in the summer. I mean, it's a totally different kind of destination. Though, yeah, you're right. We have winds and floods and everything here in the UK. So I'd rather be in Nice today.
I'd rather be anywhere right now.
But have you seen Star Wars?
Yes, of course I have.
So?
I cried like a baby.
It was magnificent.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not here to do a review of the movie, but it was fantastic. Maybe because we're an older generation that grew up with the other movies. I don't know, but it was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was. I think it's the first movie I've ever cried in. But yeah, spectacular. Go and see it if you haven't seen it.
And obviously, the company, we mentioned it, it was a few months ago that has been officially using Star Wars as branding is ANA, the Japanese airline. And they've been actually milking that cow very much.
They really have. I'm fascinated to know what they paid for that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly because during the world premiere in Hollywood, they had on the red carpet, they had a mock-up of their Dreamliner with the colors and the actors when they are inside it. Then,
oh, wow.
What I didn't know is that an actual plane, the R2-T2-1, I think, flew all the guys from just after the premiere ended in Hollywood to London for the European premiere. So they flew ANA from LAX to London Heathrow with ANA.
Wow.
It's crazy. They must have paid a lot of money to do that. Come on.
Ton of money. Wow. I didn't know that.
We said that you are going to Tokyo later in January, and I want to join you there. And I was trying to find, I said, you know what? I usually fly Emirates, the usual stuff. And I say, I want to fly that plane. It's very difficult to know when it's going to fly to because they say the routes that are currently, if you go on their website, I'll put the link in the show notes. They say which are the routes they're currently doing.
Right.
The only one Dreamliner that is painted, the two others are coming up in the spring. But they don't say which days, so you just don't know.
Oh, that's annoying. But
if anybody from ANA knows and can tell me, apparently it flies to Charles de Gaulle, and I'm ready to go to Paris.
Yeah, I was going to say because I don't think it flies to London because they do a 777 out of London. But I like your dedication that you would fly to Paris or Helsinki or wherever else they fly.
Yeah, I would have to definitely do it. But I mean, so if anyone from ANA knows that exactly when it flies in January to Paris. Either direction, I'll be ready to take up the offer and come. So yeah,
there you go.
I would love to. So please, ANA, help me here. You're my only hope.
Nice.
They also released a video on YouTube, ANA, on their official channel. They did a flight with that plane with a lot of guests, including media. Everybody was, of course, disguised as characters. It's a funny video to watch. I love very near the end, the pilot says, hyperdrive will not be used for this flight.
Nice.
And you saw, because you were doing a search on Kayak, and Kayak has been also doing something.
Yeah,
right?
this was so cute. I just happened to notice that Kayak, I still use Kayak frequently when I'm searching for flights because Google Flights is great, but people like Emirates and Turkish and sometimes Singapore Airlines and a host of other airlines don't show up in Google Flights. So Kayak is still fantastic. But I was searching for some flights last week, and the progress bar is now a lightsaber. So there's kind of this lightsaber blade, I guess it is, extends as your search is going on. So very clever and cute integration.
A secret flying that we've been talking a lot about, as well as implemented something like that. Whilst you wait, the page loads, the loading kind of drawing is a lightsaber as well.
Nice.
And for those who are really into it, back to ANA, they have a special shop. So if you have air miles accrued on ANA, maybe you'll have some, Alex, in the future. You can buy some crazy stuff, like really, like there's like cotton for makeup and stuff, like all branded Star Wars. It's really crazy. They're milking that cow a lot. One day, I'm sure we will learn how much it cost them to do that, because it's really, really, really impressive. A few shout out for new listeners. We got new listeners through Product Hunt. So hi, Product Hunters. Very nice of you to upvote us every time we put an episode there. John Peavoys told me, lives in Cork in Ireland, told me that his resolution for 2016 is to listen to our show. So,
that's a good resolution. I like that one.
And a lot of pressure for us, obviously. Yeah. Suki Fuller, she's part of the Fantastic Four gals that live here in London, along with Jessica, Christelle, and Oana. She's been listening to the show. She's also been, you remember we mentioned last week, my travel risk, that potential new startups. So she told me about a startup, I think it's called Cytora. I don't have the name in front of me. They do risk intelligence. So Suki, it's amazing. And I hope they use this data once for travel, but what they do is, instead of using the data from the US government, UK governments, and other public entities, they assess risk with a lot of data points. So it would be very interesting to have that also, to know when we travel if it's really risky or not. But I don't think they actually really work on travel yet. But I mean, thank you, Suki, for mentioning that company. We'll be on the lookout for it. We also promised, because it's the last episode of 2015, that next year we're going to tackle the big airports we have been avoiding. Yeah. Like JFK, like Charles de Gaulle, Narita, very dear to my heart. The reason I've been avoiding it is that it almost requires a full show to talk about it. The history of Narita is crazy. So I promise you guys, because I've got some requests, people say, why don't you never talk about these airports? We will go there, I promise you. And the last shout out is to Airbus. Airbus, the company, was created on December 18th, 1970. So they are 45 years old. So happy birthday, Airbus. Another thing, last week when I talked about the different travel apps, you remember TripIt, Kayak, WorldMate, and Tripcase. The one thing I completely forgot to mention, and a friend of mine, Rico Wider, who lives in, he travels a lot and blogs about his travels. He reminded me of something when I was discussing with him about it, is that TripIt has an API.
Yes.
And that's something that still makes it stand out of the crowd, because you use, I think, Alex, OpenFlights.
Openflights.org for kind of logging and looking back on and analyzing all of the trips that I've taken, it's a really great website. I love it.
And you can import your trips from TripIt.
Yeah, because if you had to do it manually, it would be a pain. But this integration is really smooth.
And the same with Fly to From, the same with App in the Air. There's a lot of apps that are using TripIt as their foundation for importing trips. So this is something that basically I would say to Tripcase, WorldMate, and other guys, you know what? You should actually implement an API, and then you'll be standing out as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So App in the Air, I just mentioned it. They just got with a new version. I don't know if you use it, Alex, but now if you like your statistics, they do a very nice statistics. It's an iPhone app. I don't think it exists on Android. And they do also these, just the statistics you mentioned on OpenFlight. They do very nice graphics on the app. It's pretty cool. You should try that. They could tell you per year, per month, what kind of plane you fly the most, the destinations you flew the most to, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, A320 is still the aircraft flying the most, which is, I find a bit sad. I love you guys, Airbus, but the A320 is not the most endearing aircraft, right?
It's a little bit boring. But you know what? That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Kayak, which I also mentioned, is launching a beta. It's called Kayak Snap. So you'll be able, Alex, to look for bookings and look for flight fares via messaging, via SMS. Would you use that?
Probably not, but I think that this is going to be a bigger and bigger thing as these sort of messaging and concierge services really take off. I think this is
crazy, huh?
This is
everybody
definitely
moves there. Yeah, it's definitely a trend. Everybody moves there. It's true that more and more of your time is spent at messaging apps. Probably in Facebook Messenger, or on WeChat if you live in China, and a few others. But I mean, it's going somewhere, right?
Yeah, it definitely.
You and me were probably still kind of. I don't believe they can be as good as us, basically.
No, I don't, and I don't think so either. But I think that for people that are of that connected generation who are okay with that messaging format, it's going to be huge for them.
If you're interested in that, there's a article. It's called "The Future of Travel" by McKinsey, the famous consultants. Please read it. They talked about messaging as well. It's pretty well done. I know McKinsey is not always the people love to hate McKinsey. Say, oh, these are big consultants. But it's pretty interesting to read about the future of travel. And talking about apps still, I found the other day, it's an actual app has been released and actually works. Fairfly. Have you seen that, Alex?
I am not 100% sure how I understand how it works.
So the idea, and I've not tried it yet, but I will. And the idea is pretty interesting. So in all the other apps we've been talking pretty much all this year are a different take on how do you book a flight, right? Or how do you find a fare? This one lets you do, Alex, you do your fare, you do everything yourself. Yeah. Once you've booked, you send your booking confirmation to them. And what they'll do, they'll actually continue to be on the lookout for a price that beats what you've gotten, including the changing fee for changing the ticket. I find the value proposition pretty okay. I don't know if they have a business model case. I don't know if enough people would do it. But you know what? The cost is, I would try it. I would say, you know what?
Yeah.
Here's what I found.
What do you have to lose?
Exactly. Can you bid it? If you bid it, I'll be happy to pay you a little fee for finding me a better ticket.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have a load of flights for the first quarter of next year already lined up. So I'm going to give it a whirl.
It's live, so you can download it. I think it's both on Android and on iPhone. It's also a website, so go ahead and try it. How many flights do you have in January?
In January.
Oh, sorry, Q1. Sorry, you mentioned Q1.
8?
Oh my God. So are you addicted to air miles? Because that's the article you sent me, right?
Yeah. So this is a very funny article, and I think it's true. I think it's a confessional. It was in New York Magazine, written in a very tongue-in-cheek way about this guy's addiction to air miles, but it's written in a way kind of as someone who's got a much darker addiction to something that's a bit more nefarious and not good for you. But it's extremely funny, and this guy's kind of outlining for the novices of the world what it is and how he got from nothing to silver to gold, and all of these kind of I need to go to London for the day, and explaining to people who look at him with in a kind of incredulous fashion. Incredulity, that's the word I was looking for. And how much he's spent on tickets and to get all these miles. But I'm not going to ruin the punchline, but there's a very funny exchange at the end that kind of that wraps this whole thing together. I think it's such a great caricature of those of us who chase status.
It's a work of fiction, obviously, because we don't know anyone like that, right?
Yeah. Clearly, it's no one's like this at all.
Let's be honest. Even you and me, when we exchange daily about like you were looking for flights, there's always this loyalty in air miles. Although it's not a primary concern, price is still a primary concern, and sometimes ease of getting to a destination. It matters. You're like, yeah, but I could accrue miles there, which also means that then I could use those miles to actually, upgrade myself or buy other tickets. It still matters.
Yeah, it does. It's another one of the many things that you consider when you're booking a ticket.
Another article that was very well done is in the New York Times, The Art of Turning Around an Airplane.
This was great.
The New York Times does really these kind of series of articles that are really well done with nice infographics. They show you what it actually requires. It's not entirely a mystery, but for those of you who don't know what it actually takes to turn around an airplane. And we know that nowadays, especially on short haul, it has to be very, very fast. Yeah. And it shows you all the steps. It's very well done. I'll put a link in the show notes.
I think it's an important thing for people to realize, the amount of effort and the amount of people involved to take a plane from landing to then being ready to take off again in a very short period of time. It's not a simple or straightforward process, and I think we overlook that.
And we tend to sometimes also complain at airports, why can't I board already? And, I see the plane over there. Yeah, well, it landed 10 minutes ago. Leave a little bit of time to people to clean. There's this thing where we want immediacy for everything, and we don't realize the work that is being undertaken in the background.
Yeah.
A story that has been made the rounds in Switzerland. So the ex-emir of Qatar has apparently broken his leg on a vacation in Morocco. And he flew in emergency to Switzerland, to Zurich, to get a surgery, I guess. Until now, the story is nothing very extraordinary. The thing is that After he landed, these people got worried, and up to 9 jumbo jets arrived at Zurich Airport
That's
to
staggering.
basically fly the entire family, I guess, from all over the world, mainly from Qatar. The reason it made the rounds in Switzerland is because it broke Zurich Airport as flight ban during nighttime. They all arrived during the night. So, of course, it makes a bigger fuss. Like, why don't they, follow regulations? But I mean, come on, 9 jets?
9. That's incredible. And they were all, as you say, or a lot of them were 747s. I think they have a 747-800 as well.
I think so.
In their fleet.
I would love if anyone is a plane spotter in Zurich that she got the chance to take a picture of all these aircraft, because that must be a rare sight to see all of them next to each other at Zurich Airport. Maybe only in Doha, but in Doha they must be hidden in the hangar. So that maybe, please, if someone has pictures, I'll be on the lookout on airliners. But I mean, wow.
Yeah, that would be quite a collection.
And, if you have so many aircrafts, of course, Alex and myself will be very happy to take one of your 747s for our own use. We'll just brand it layovers.
They are.
Right? Going to the US. So last episodes, we talked about how Al Baker of Qatar Airways lashed out against the US airlines, especially against Richard Anderson. But Anderson just got a little bit of consolation, right?
He was named as Aviation Week's Person of the Year. That's not an endorsement or a criticism. It's just someone who has been in the spotlight for one reason or another, and he got it. He sounds like a painfully dull individual. There's this profile that they wrote on him. He doesn't like schmoozing. He doesn't like golf. He doesn't like fishing. He doesn't like Hawaii. He says, if Boeing wants to sell us aircraft, they better come down to Atlanta and see me in the office. This is not a club. This is a business. Settle down, dude. It's like...
But at the same time, let's be also honest. For all we can criticize Delta, he started out a company that are very, very profitable.
Absolutely. In isolation, he has done an extraordinary
job. Yeah. The stock price is all-time high. I mean, he's doing a great job. And, of course, there's this spat with the Middle Eastern. This is how, especially here in Europe, we hear the most about him. But come on, he's made a really good job.
Yeah.
And so there's some reason why he was elected, although we know that these kind of awards are maybe directed or whatever. But, he's a good CEO.
Yeah, he is.
Maybe not likable, but a good CEO.
He's done a good job with that airline, and I think if you take the ME3 thing away, it's a good product, and he's clearly a good businessman.
Talking about the ME3, Emirates, a small thing, but I got the alert the other day. So Emirates is now forbidding hoverboards on board. So hoverboards are not the ones that you find in Back to the Future. They actually have wheels, but they've been so popular this Christmas. These little 2-wheel thing. And
yeah, they're like
stand on them.
Segways without the handle.
Basically, Emirates is actually forbidding them. Why? Because of lithium-ion batteries. It's honestly understandable.
Most airlines have banned them. In fact, Russell Crowe threw an absolute fit at the airport a couple of days ago at Virgin Australia, because he wasn't allowed to take his hoverboard on the airplane. But a lot of airlines are doing this for the exact same reason.
Actually, I read that, I think it was this morning, Amazon is clamping down on this because a lot of them are coming from apparently dodgy Chinese manufacturers.
Yeah.
By dodgy, I mean quality control is not there. So you can only imagine if the batteries are not well laid into the hoverboard, what could happen in the plane. So I understand why they would actually ban them. Coming back to Europe, BA has released an update of their iPhone app. I think you've tried it as well, right?
Yes. It's very good.
It has one thing that is new is now how to find awards flights. So when you have some air miles, you used to have to go to the website. You can do it directly on the app. They're not the first one to do that, but the way it's done is really smart. It's really well done.
Their apps in general have been very, very good. And this new iteration or latest iteration of it is extremely good.
But talking about BA, the big mystery for us, and we've been actually active on Twitter about that, has been so many friends of mine. So, I'm a regular on London to Geneva because my dad lives in Geneva and back. I always fly Swiss because I have status in Star Alliance, not on BA. But a lot of friends of mine actually use BA. And lately they've been telling me, Paul, okay, my plane is being delayed. So there's been a lot of fog in Geneva. So that's, of course, a reason for why delays happen. And I've been delayed myself with my Swiss flight for more than 3 hours when I went there. So, and the fog was really thick. So that's usual. What is not usual is that when you look at Flight Radar 24 or Plane Finder, you see that BA flights are avoiding French airspace.
Yeah, it's the weirdest damn thing. These short haul, some of the ones from North Africa or Africa in general are not. They're flying over French airspace. But you and I found more and more and more flights that were going the long way around, just hugging the French-Swiss or French-German border. And I asked the guys on Plane Finder on Twitter, and they responded immediately, which is really cool. And they said, yeah, that is weird. Ask BA. So I asked BA, and BA's response on Twitter was basically no comment. So
yeah, actually, if you look, I found a few tweets because some people that were just passengers say, why is my flight taking 20 to 30 minutes more than usual? And the answer from BA on Twitter was, we're not aware of anything. Like, come on, guys, you're not aware of anything. Your flights are clearly delayed. And the pilots, and this is really interesting, I've asked 4 different friends to whom it happened, and they each had a different explanation by the pilots, which means they had to find something. So the first one I heard 2 times was industrial action by French ATC. The thing is, when you actually look it up, even in the French press, specialized air civil aviation press, there's nothing about a strike anywhere. There's not a strike. Some others said it was because of weather conditions, because that's hard to assess because you have to be on the day. But I mean, it's consistent. They consistently avoid for at least a month and a half. The most likely explanation, there are 2. And what you found one, right?
Yeah, there was a conversation on Flyer Talk about this, and somebody suggested that there was new equipment being installed at the Brest ATC facility, which is a key European ATC facility, and it was taking a little bit longer to get everything back up, and so capacity was reduced. That seems logical and fair, but why aren't they saying that? Why is no one giving a straight answer?
Yeah, exactly.
It's really, really strange.
When we first heard about it, our first kind of inclining was like, is there a safety reason, right? That's strange because obviously that would mean that they would avoid France airspace altogether, that other airlines, because the main other 2 competitors for that route are EasyJet and Swiss. They both go straight. So it's only BA. So it's very strange that we don't really know. I went through the various websites in French because I speak the language to see what the official were saying about the potential reduction in French airspace. So there's no safety reason mentioned. They're not well maintained, these websites, to be honest. I mean, the news are like sometimes a few months old. But there's one thing that could be, there's a new planning of how the airspace is coordinated between the UK and France. And that could maybe explain it. I don't know. There's a new approach to London Heathrow. So they slow down the planes way before what they used to until now.
That's interesting.
And that would be still in the French airspace or the Belgian airspace above it, in order to limit the old, holding pattern over London. Could it be that? I don't know. But it's strange that nobody says anything.
Yeah, they could just say it's an air traffic control capacity issue, and then we can deduce from that the original theory is correct. But the no comment thing is weird.
Maybe our show will lead some people to investigate, but nobody seems to know. We've been asking around, and it's only theory, so none of us actually know anything. So, but at least they're going the right direction, because there's been this story, and I want to listen to you because I think it was exaggerated. If you've been anywhere online in the past few days, we're recording today on December the 30th, 2015. Everybody mentioned that Malaysian Airlines flight that supposedly took a wrong route for almost an hour in the totally opposite direction it was supposed to.
Yeah, this got the tabloid treatment, and it's, from what I understand, it didn't really deserve it. But essentially, the Malaysian Airlines operations sent one flight plan, and that was loaded into the computers. Then a second one was later added, but that wasn't properly communicated. So the plane took off, and this was going from Auckland in New Zealand to Kuala Lumpur. And they were flying a little further south than they normally do for about an hour before the pilot said, hey, this is weird. Do you guys have any idea what's going on? And ATC said, this is what we've been given. And it sounds like that these two flight plans were not communicated correctly or someone didn't review them properly. There was never any safety issue or it wasn't lost or going where it shouldn't have gone. It was going where the controllers told it to go.
Yeah. And that's the main point, I think, because when you read, you just mentioned the tabloid treatment. It was like, yeah, the pilots didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it
they
was
flew the
flying
plane
in
in
the
the wrong
wrong
direction.
Yeah, no,
they're stupid. No, come on, guys. There was clearly, of course, a mix-up. We don't know exactly who was at fault here, but there was, like you said, there was never a problem with safety. The plane was going the direction it was supposed to go according to its flight plan. There's just two different flight plans, and at some point they realized that it
got out of sync. I mean, Aviation Herald, which is such a great website and is heavily populated by people in the industry. The comments are like, I don't understand how this was ever newsworthy. This happens all the time. But, I think, well, we all know why. It's because it's Malaysian, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's in the midst of this all. So December was the month with the whole rebranding. We know that rebranding was very limited, but was the rebranding was supposed to start. We talked about last episode that they've done now that deal with Emirates. It seems still in ebb and flow. It's still in the full plan by Mueller is still not there.
Yeah, we haven't seen.
It's sad that people keep pushing on that airline. They should just leave it alone for a little bit.
Yeah, let it do its thing. Let him do his thing as well.
I totally agree with that one. Back to Europe with Lufthansa. Just to mention that they've updated their app as well, like all these apps have done. Not that we always track all the apps, but the interesting bit that I read through it is that apparently now Munich Airport is using beacons because all the wayfinding and everything we've been talking about at Frankfurt Airport must be now implemented at Munich Airport, because through the app of Lufthansa you can now find where the lounge are, et cetera, et cetera. So it means that they are going in that direction as well.
Nice.
Good news. Talking still about Germany, Frankfurt Airport has hit 60 million passengers for the first time this year. So they're growing. They're actually not growing that fast. So Heathrow is still number one in Europe. Charles de Gaulle still number two. There's now a debate if whether Amsterdam is number three or Frankfurt is number three. That doesn't really matter. The pace of growth is nothing compared to the pace of growth like Istanbul or, of course, Dubai or any Chinese airports. I say that because there have been some articles in German that are saying basically that, yeah, well, it's going bigger, but guys, we're losing the race. Of course, that doesn't even talk about Heathrow in its third runway.
Yeah,
but the big news is that Atlanta Airport has reached 100 million passengers.
Wow.
Right?
That's it. It's just two interesting points there. I think Istanbul, you really feel that airport has outgrown its capacity.
Purpose.
Like it's dark and dingy and cruddy and crowded. So I cannot wait for them to open their new airport. And Atlanta's really interesting as well. Some of those terminals are awful, but some of them are really very solid. And the what they're able to do with a facility that is really kind of disconnected. I think there's like 7 terminals or something like that. But it works. It clearly works. It wouldn't be able to handle 100 million passengers if it didn't work. So it gets a lot of crap, but that's a good airport.
And remember last episode we said about the airports that were considered good overall in the US. The big airports, Atlanta is considered, and their on-time arrival, landings, and departures are also pretty good. So for such a big airport, it's quite a feet, because you have much smaller airports that are really crap. They cannot handle their situation, and 100 million passengers still works. It's not a fantastic airport in terms of design, in terms of it's not endearing, but it works really well. Apparently, the 100 millionth passenger got a special, a red carpet thing. I think he won a car.
Nice.
He won tickets by, I think Delta offered some tickets. And they were like, that was really, all the other passengers the same day got pins and keychains, which of course you were not the 100 millionth, but still, they made it a point to make some kind of celebration. So it's pretty nice.
That's cool.
To another very heavy airport. Of course, we're talking about our airport here at Heathrow, but it's so heavy that they're so at capacity that Virgin Atlantic was able to find a new way to raise money. That's pretty amazing, actually.
It's a very innovative idea. So Virgin are mortgaging some of its takeoffs and landing slots at Heathrow to fund future growth. The value of these slots, because as you say, Heathrow is so oversubscribed, is so great that there are investors willing to lend against their value to the tune of, in this instance, £220 million. So it's basically, it's a secured note. No one has ever done this before, but it's genius, really.
It is.
And I think
it is.
It answers something that we talked about a few episodes ago. Virgin Atlantic had set up this wholly owned subsidiary called Virgin Atlantic International Limited. And that's kind of the safety net for these investors, that they can then put the liability, if you will, into that vehicle. So it's really smart. Kudos to the CFO or whoever came up with this idea, because they've freed up 220 million quid to fund the expansion of the airline.
Which, by the way, reminds me, we talked in the last episode about the comments by the BA, I think it was the chief exec, who said, oh, if you don't get a third runway, we're going to get out of here. I want to, because I should have said that last week, of course, there's a lot of it is just
posturing.
They say that, posturing, because they have 52% of the capacity at Heathrow. They will never leave Heathrow, for crying out loud. They need Heathrow, but it's all the game. Because the reason I mentioned that is because some people got to me on email and said, of course they will never leave. Yeah, you're right, guys. Of course they will never leave, but still they have to make some pressure to the government.
Yeah,
so I understand what they do.
I don't think they were ever threatening to leave Heathrow. They were just going to take their investment and growth to the other two hubs. So their presence at Heathrow would stay the same, but they would shift their emphasis away to Madrid.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you cannot. I mean, they might, of course, shift a little bit of the emphasis, but still, Heathrow, it's a financial city of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you cannot just say, "Oh, Alex, if you want to fly to Hong Kong, you got to go first flight to from London to Madrid and then to Hong Kong." You'll be like, "What are you talking about, guys?" So there's a limit to that threat, because at the same time, London is too important of a city to be able to just say, oh, we're going to go away.
No, I definitely agree.
But and the other Virgin, your Virgin.
My Virgin.
Alex. So what's the news about your Virgin?
So they have put in an order for some A321s, which took me by surprise. There was always rumor of it, and they're A321 Neos. I should add.
Yep.
I thought this is what they were going to use for their Hawaii routes, but they didn't. They end up using some A320s with the LEAP engines, from what I understand. But this is a really sensible move. So they're getting 10 A321s to increase capacity at slot restricted airports like JFK, so they can basically take more people using less slots and taking advantage of those slots. So good idea.
Do you think they will become at some point, or are they a more Airbus company than Boeing?
As a group? Well, each of the Virgin Airlines operates independently.
Definitely, but I'm talking about Virgin America.
Oh, they'll always be Airbus. I think. Well, not always, but they have always been Airbus in their nearly 10-year history. I don't see that changing.
Because in the US, it's quite a statement to do that.
It is. But I mean, you look at JetBlue, you look at Frontier, you look at Virgin America.
The low cost do that. Yeah,
they're all Airbus.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. So it's interesting to see that, because a lot of people assume that the US market is a bit locked in. I mean, you'll see Airbuses, but it's more like a balance of the Boeing play. It's not usually most of the airlines, especially the traditional ones, are primarily Boeing. So you expect to see a lot of Boeing. So it's interesting.
But I mean, even United on their narrow body are moving heavily towards Airbus and away from Boeing.
Airbus. Well, I mean, it's good to have competition, because you also you could play that game between the two main manufacturers, and maybe soon to be more. I mean, we have a little bit more. We have the Embraers, we have Bombardier, and we talked about, it was I think 4 episodes ago, about Mitsubishi, the Japanese manufacturer that was finally supposed to come with this aircraft, and apparently is delayed. The delay is now about a year, so that's a bit of bad news, because everybody was kind of expecting the aircraft to be ready, etc. And apparently, it's I don't know. I don't know if the other news we had before were just too hasty. Oh, we're ready. We're about to give it to the world, and now they coming back. It of course hits some of the companies that have placed orders, because now a full year for an airline is actually quite
a long time, especially when you built your fleet strategy on it. But it's weird, because I don't know. Maybe I don't know why I thought this, but I assumed this would be just a home run. It wouldn't even be a thing.
Yeah.
But it has had problems, and I guess when it's your first plane, really, you're going to run into these kind of problems. But they have 225 orders and 184 options from airlines, not just in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
SkyWest in the US have ordered 100 of them. So as you say, that's a real kick in the teeth. But you don't do things like this unless you have to. So I hope they're able to solve whatever problem they're running into.
But on the other side of the spectrum, better news for, and actually very good news for the guys in Russia, because the Sukhoi is getting more orders. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. So CityJet have taken the options for 6 more. They already have several of them on order, 10, I believe.
Yeah, we talked about it. Well, that's great. That aircraft must be really good.
Well, I forgot about this until I read an airliner's trip report that Interjet in Mexico have 16 Superjets in service already. I'd completely spaced on that, and apparently it's a fantastic airplane. Someone was saying, this person on the trip report was saying that they seem to show wear and tear a little bit longer, but a little bit more obviously, than something as robust as a 737. But I'd forgotten that this has been in the air for a while now.
It's a newer aircraft. They will learn also the lessons for the wear and tear. I'm talking, Boeing has, years and decades of experience about how to create aircraft that last long. And Sukhoi will learn as well.
But the crazy thing is, the Superjet has been flying since 2008 and was introduced into airline service in 2011.
11, yeah, exactly. That's what I remember. That's the date I remember. I didn't know about 2008, or I just spaced out on it either as well.
Pretty amazing.
Well, it's good news. Good. I like competition. I like more aircrafts, more different. Also because, as I said in the beginning, although they're not a competitor of the A320, I'd like to fly different aircrafts. I like to see something else. So more Embraers, more C series, for etc. I'd like to see a lot more different aircrafts in the air. But before we move on, CityJet apparently is about to be sold again. Maybe we're not sure. The only rumors. They seem to be changing hands quite often, that company, which means either two things. Either the owners were not the right fit, or they're actually such a good company that, people are really willing to pay the price for it. But talking about Bombardier, so the CS100 is finally getting his all clear to take off. He's getting a license. That's good news.
That is good news. And it's kind of strange that all of these single aisle planes are coming onto the market. So Mitsubishi will get there eventually, I'm sure. The Superjet, now Bombardier, Embraer coming out with a new version of the E-Jet next year, I think. And I guess the question with the Bombardier C series is, will they run out of money before this plane ever flies?
Yeah,
because they've been hemorrhaging cash.
And there've been rumors that they wanted to sell themselves to Airbus at some point.
Yeah, or sell the production line to Boeing. And I don't think anybody's going to do it. So they just have to hope that they can get this thing to customers before they run out of cash.
Yeah, because it looks like a great airplane as well, honestly.
Yeah, it's a stunning airplane. Very beautiful.
So let's hope they make it, because it's, again, I repeat this thing I said 2 minutes ago, but it's nice to have competition in more aircraft.
Yeah.
Also for us, for people like you and me, we like to see different aircraft. And I don't like my Avroliner. I know you like them. So I like to fly something like a CS100 more than an Avroliner. Back to a story that sadly we have to go back to, Egypt. So we said last episode that the UK was pushing to reopen Sharm el-Sheikh, their routes to Sharm el-Sheikh, but apparently there's been kind of it was more of a political decision on this, let's push for the reopening, but the airlines are like, no, we're not going to go there. We're going to wait, and the wait is actually quite long. And I remind, for people who don't know, Sharm el-Sheikh is a very popular tourist destination, holiday destination from Europe, from the UK, especially from Russia as well, and in the UK, even Thompson and all the guys that say, we're going to wait. It's not safe enough. So it's not a good sign.
Yeah, so even if the UK government says, fine, you can fly, no one is going to. Thomas Cook have said they're not going to fly until at least the end of March, and everybody else is at least at the end of January. But what's strange about this, and some other stories we're going to talk about shortly, is that we haven't heard anything conclusive about this.
Mm.
First, it was definitely a bomb. Then, as we mentioned in the last show, the Egyptian authorities said, we can't find any traces of a bomb. And that's it. That we haven't heard anything since.
Well, then again, these kind of investigations take time. So it's not as if, but you would think they would rush it. But maybe there are also some negotiations behind the scene, and we don't know what happens. We don't know what to believe first, and we don't know what happens. We mentioned several, again, another sad news. We mentioned several shows in a row that there have been bomb threats that all have been proven fake bomb threats in different aircrafts. Air France has suffered a lot, but also Turkish it was, and I think another airline. But this time it got a little bit more serious because there was this flight, the Air France flight again, that was flying from Mauritius back to Charles de Gaulle. And they found a bomb. So that's the whole thing that we're going to discuss about now. But they found a bomb in one of the lavatories. The first news we all gotten through on Twitter was like, oh, wow, they actually found a bomb. So the plane was rerouted to Kenya. It landed there. They cleared the bomb. And then, well, it wasn't apparently a bomb because, I will put a picture. The show, it looks like a bomb. It more looks like a bomb that we see in Die Hard, kind of.
It was like 4 toilet roll cardboard things with a kitchen timer attached to it. I mean, it was
1 or 2 kitchen timers and a FM antenna. So they looked like something of a prop.
Yeah.
A prop. I would have been, if I would have been the guy to discover that thing in the lavatory, I would have been freaked out, even though it looked like a prop. Like,
no.
I mean, a flight there's something with a plug on it.
If I'd gone into the lab and I'd seen that, then I would have flipped out. And I don't think anybody else would have reacted any differently. But it all started to kind of unravel. The plane was on the ground. And then there's these really casual pictures of this quote unquote bomb being posted on Twitter. You're like, what, how, okay, why has this been removed from the airplane? How are people standing around what is supposed to be an explosive device? And then you had the CEO of Air France coming online, basically pissed off, saying some jerk did this and it's cost us a lot of money thanks to the Kenyan government for doing their jobs. And that's the last we've heard of it. We don't know.
Yes. They've arrested someone because I've been reading the French press to try to continue to get in the story. They've arrested one passenger. They said at first it was 2. Apparently it's just 1. Again, I don't have the full picture here. So people understand, because a lot of people were thinking, okay, that device, that prop had been placed before the plane took off. No, because they've been around. Apparently, that's, again, the story we have around in the entire aircraft before the passengers board. There was nothing in the lavatories. It's clearly coming from someone inside the plane. Of course, then people say, oh, he went through the X-ray. Yeah, because if it's just like 2 clocks and, and basically toilet roll, of course it would go through X-ray.
Nothing's going to, exactly.
So let's not accuse here the Mauritian authorities for doing anything wrong, because nobody would have seen it. But still, if it's a prank, it's very problematic. If it's a dry run now,
that's what's frightening. Can you assemble this with the parts that we've, smuggled on board? And I think, if yes, but there's even holes in that story. Like if they thought they were doing a dry run, why would they have just left it there to get caught? They would have just gone, yes, I can get this into the bathroom and leave. It's a fishy story, and we haven't heard the end of it. But as I just said it earlier, we haven't heard anything about Egypt. So, and I was surprised by the dismissive tone of the Air France CEO. Perhaps it didn't translate as well as it could have. But
yeah, because in French it was not as dismissive. But I think you could see you use the term pissed off. I think he was pissed off is maybe too much, but he was like almost like, "Come on, guys." We've had all these planes rerouted already. I mentioned Loic and his plane was rerouted to Montreal, and now one more. But this time there's it gets scarier. The airline is suffering. The airline in Europe, in terms of the health of the airline, Air France is suffering a lot. So I guess the CEO is like, guys, enough, and I get it. Let's also be, because there've been some people that criticize the use of the term bomb. The Kenya Airports Authority was the first one to say there was a bomb. So it's not as if people just invented there was a bomb. They said it. Of course, then they changed to suspicious object. But for the first 2 hours, people were talking about a bomb. It is really scary.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know what to believe either here, to be honest, right? It's
strange.
But to go to something more light, because enough of the bad stories. When we were exchanging, you and me, about that story, I said, have you read the number of passengers in that aircraft?
Yeah. That was the thing that I thought, oh, that's clearly a typo. But there were 459 people on that plane, and it was a 777-300, which has 468 seats. And so that kind of sparked off a conversation between you and I about the capacity of these planes throughout history.
So the seat map of that version of that 777-300 ER, so extension range, you have very few seats in the front, a few very premium seats, and then the rest is just a stack of economy. That discussion led me to think about the old 747-400D, which was D for domestic. They were made for Japan, for these very very heavy routes, especially Osaka to Tokyo, and how many passengers could they have?
Yep.
Because we had said, I think it was also in the last episode, that Emirates, the A380 with the 2 class, was now at 615 passengers. So were there more? So I digged up and I found that ANA still runs 777-300 with a capacity of 514 passengers.
Staggering.
That's a lot, honestly. JAL still has a 747-400D, the domestic version. That's 568 passengers.
That's amazing.
Just looking at the seat map, you're like, what? But ANA, they retired the last 747-400D on April 1st. I'll put the link in the show note because they made a whole ceremony. It was really nice. Especially you and me, Alex, we love our 747s. Nice to see an airline giving a proper send-off to such an aircraft.
Nice.
624 passengers in that one.
Jeez.
That's more than the A380 currently with Emirates with 2 class.
And to be fair, I mean, these were domestic flights, so they were never particularly long, but still, that's extraordinary.
Aerostral wanted to do an all-economy A380, and that would have made 840 seats.
Could it even get off the ground?
I don't know. But I mean, crazy, right? It might happen one day. We never know.
No, I'm sure it will.
Have you flown one of these very heavy economy planes? No.
I don't think so, no.
No, we don't have those in Europe. That's also maybe why. I've seen the 747-400D on the ground in Japan, but I've never actually entered one. Or maybe I have, actually. I'll dig up my old boarding passes from the last decade and I'll find it if I've done it. We'll talk about it next year. A few other news. First, Twitter implemented that thing called Twitter Moments. I don't know if you've seen that. It's this thing where basically it creates stories from happenings around the world, and it's pretty well done. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but the first time I actually got that, the first story was a story about someone flying without an ID in a US airport. And I always thought it was impossible to fly without an ID, any type of ID, whether it's a driver's license or not. Apparently, it's possible. That person explains how she had forgotten all their IDs at home. She was able to show a magazine which was addressed to her, so that has her name on it, which, come on, it's not really an ID. She was put on through some person on the phone, must be some kind of security somewhere, and that person asked her a few questions and then vetted her, and she was able to get into the flight.
Wow. I don't know how I feel about that.
Talking about Twitter, you sent me a picture of a Norwegian flight that had a little problem.
So my friend David Prager, he was in Stockholm over the festive period, and he tweeted out that during the de-icing process at Stockholm Airport, it looks like the de-icing equipment knocked off a piece of the wing. And he took a picture of it and posted it on Twitter. It was not a small piece. I mean, it was probably 4 feet long. I think it was part of the winglet from what I can see. Yeah, anyway, what was crazy is two things were really interesting about this. He was very lucky because apparently they had and this was on a 787. They just happened to have another one nearby. So I think they were all taken off the plane and reboarded onto the spare flight and all went accordingly. But tangentially, on Twitter, the amount of news and media organizations that messaged him and said, can we use this?
Use the picture.
Use this picture. And it's sort of, this happens an alarming amount of times where, a piece of airport equipment, quote unquote, interferes with a plane. I was amazed. It just went all over the place. So it was kind of neat to see Prager all over the news for a good reason. It's something that he wasn't directly involved with. But ouch.
We both saw that news. It was a service vehicle that collided with a jet bridge at Bismarck Airport. The picture is also like, what? So you see basically that vehicle that basically tried to go under the jet bridge. And of course, there was no clearance and it just basically crashed.
Yeah. And it just it barfed de-icing fluid all over the tarmac in this kind of green supernatural fluid.
These are always, fun. They're not fun because obviously they cost money. But for us, it's always kind of fun to see.
Yeah.
They're not.
Nobody got hurt.
Exactly. They're not grave stories. We're not talking about bomb threats and all that. It happens, shit happens.
Exactly,
Even at airports, even at very efficient airports. And so what? Talking about shit happens, it was an article by, I read it in Life Hacker, but it came from Travel Plus Leisure, which is very well known amongst the travel industry. And they ranked the 10 worst in-flight service airlines. So I'm just going to go quickly through them. They're pretty much all domestic. Spirit is first, Allegiant second, EasyJet, third, American Eagle fourth, Frontier fifth, US Airways, United, AirTran, American Airlines, and Air China is 10th. What do you think?
I think it's going to skew heavily towards an American audience anyway, which is why you see mostly U.S. airlines. But again, not surprising. We all know how poor most American airlines are. I think EasyJet, that's really surprising to me. I think that's very harsh. The rest of them, I've never flown on AirTran. I know that Spirit is consistently horrific.
Everybody says that, yeah. Air China, we also hear it's 10th. We hear some bad stories about it. I'm not sure because I haven't taken it in a long while. But I find that at least EasyJet number 3 is...
That's surprising to me.
Because, yeah, of course, there's like very few service because that's what you pay for. That's the kind of expectations. And I always found, at least in my experience, that the crew was young and smiling and funny. You could interact with them. It was a pretty okay experience. Like honestly, I would actually rank Ryanair much higher than EasyJet if it was like such comparison. So of course, anyway, if I flip that around, Skift has done an interesting analysis of the world's best airline brands, how they rank by consumers. It's a bit of I'm not sure I agree with the methodology, how they actually rank the airlines. They went through looking at their activity on social and how they, what kind of advertising, et cetera. So there's a bit of soft metrics here.
Yeah, I'm always wary of these types of things, but they did good work on this.
Yeah, exactly. They explained I'll put the link, they explain the methodology, and unsurprisingly, number 1 is Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that those guys pump into brand development is extraordinary. And I think they do a really good job because they're using the right vehicles, and I use that in the loosest sense of the word, to talk to different audiences. So the Jennifer Aniston thing was lighthearted way to talk to a specific audience, especially sort of middle-class Americans, about the product and showing how much better they could have it if they didn't insist on flying on U.S. airlines. They used the jetpack stunt to kind of show how cool and progressive and how basically they have, bottomless amounts of money available to them.
They've done also the ad with Real Madrid. So going to the crowd of plays football. It was actually a very funny one. All the ones during the World Cup as well last year. So, I mean, they're such a large airline and they have such, of course, a very large amount to spend on advertising and on social channels. So it's true that they play very well with that. So it's not surprising. Number 2 is Turkish. So Turkish, we have both, like this inconsistent airline. But in terms of communication, if you remove the product that we actually experience.
Yes, they've done an extraordinary job.
Yeah, it's also very good. It looks like it's very well done. It's very consistent across the board. It's stylish without being nosy. It's honestly, it's very, very well done. Yeah. It's the product, some part of the product, the hard product still has to catch up with that.
Yeah.
and they call it tier 2. But it's number 3 if you want, is American Airlines. So that's interesting.
They spent a lot of money, haven't they, on kind of trying to develop their brand or redevelop their brand and image, especially in the US. And some of the stuff they put out has actually been, again, pretty good. If you remove it from the service and just take a look at what they've done to communicate themselves as a brand, they've done good work.
And then we're not going to go through the old list. Air France comes next, which I find very surprising that they're in front of KLM. But it's true that Air France is also very nice, very French type of advertising. Look at their YouTube channel if you have time. It's actually really well done, very classy advertising, dreamy advertising. So it's really well done. So again, it's only a brand valuation. The methodology, you can always, of course, argue with it, but I think it's interesting that Skift has a sort of reputation. They do their work. So it's nice that to read that once a year. Now, going back to something a bit funny, have you seen that news with these aircraft it was in Nigeria, when they had to disembark passengers with a ladder?
Yeah, I did. And I don't really know how to react to it. There is a video of a normal metallic step ladder propped up against this 737 with people climbing down it. Like, it's the most extraordinary thing. And apparently the the stairs weren't working, and they couldn't get them to the aircraft. So they said, "Look, wait, and we'll get you off the airplane." And someone said, "No, screw that," and went and got a ladder, and they started climbing down the airplane. I don't really know who to believe, but it's.
I mean, it's not newsworthy, but I found pretty funny because have you ever boarded a plane with a ladder?
No,
I mean,
no.
I've never done that. But the excuse of the airport is a bit sketchy. Is like, yeah, well, they were working, but we were late putting the thing. Probably, like you said, some passenger was like, I really want to get out. Maybe they've been waiting forever already. You never know how the actual backstory, but to see people disembarking through a ladder. Now, I wish I could do that from A380. That would be cool.
You need a hell of a ladder. I think. I mean, this is so often why there's specific models of the 737 that have the stairs built into the aircraft.
Oh yeah, it's true.
That they can for exactly this purpose, where they don't have the capabilities at the airports, the more remote airports, to get people off. So, boy, they really could have used that on this particular.
They don't do them anymore.
I think they still make the 737 model that has it, but it's for very. I mean, I know Ryanair have them, but it's for very specific airports and aircraft.
So finally, a good story. Moving into the next year. Next episode will be next year. It's finally the US and Cuba have met an agreement. If you live in the US, you'll be able to fly to and back Cuba, and I think that's pretty good news. It's a nice destination to see. So I find that very warming. It's great. A great story in app. Apparently, there's almost like a gold rush. All the airlines in the US are pushing for routes there now.
I bet. And to anybody who is not an American who's thinking of going to Cuba, I would suggest that you go now before it turns into Cancun.
I mean, it's good. It's good news from the Cuba economy. It will be foreign entering the country. Tourism is great. So it's all good. But well, yeah, you're right. Probably the more you wait, the more it'll become like Disneyland or something. So it's better to go as soon as possible. So moving to an airport that I haven't been in, I was thinking about it the other day. So Nice Airport, which the proper name is Nice France Côte d'Azur, or because it basically covers the entire south of France. The last time I landed there was 2001.
Oh, wow.
Or 2000. Actually, the second terminal wasn't even built. It was being built. So my recollection of the airport is a bit tough. So I'll let you run with it and I'll add some stuff. So what do you think about the airport?
Yeah, it's a good airport. Not too heavy on amenities in Terminal 2, which is the one I fly out of the most, because that's where EasyJet fly in and out of. It, as you say, it not only serves a lot of the south east of France, but it also serves Monaco. It's the closest airport to Monaco and Monte Carlo, and I went there twice last year to
Monaco.
To Monaco, yeah, for
nice.
For speaking engagement.
Yeah, you say that.
Well, actually,
you have your bank account or something, right?
Yes, I had to go and withdraw some money. Actually, I tell a lie. One was to go to Monte Carlo, the other was to go to Cannes. So
I was about to say that one of the reasons that airport is very famous is that when there's a Cannes festival, the film festival, everybody of course arrives in Nice. When of course there's a Formula One Grand Prix in Monaco, everybody arrives also in Nice. And it's also the French Riviera. It's a great destination, especially during the summer. The beaches are fantastic. It's France's great food. I think it's the third busiest in France. Do not think it as a small airport. I mean, it's very heavily EasyJet, interestingly.
Yep.
So I think it was 99, not 2001. So it's even actually further than I thought. Wow. And I was back then already flying EasyJet to go there. It was from Geneva, because Geneva was an early hub for EasyJet in Europe. I was working, that's the third reason why you would go there. The fourth reason, I was working in Sophia Antipolis. Sophia Antipolis is basically a sub of, nowadays you would call it a startup incubator city or something, but basically they've been collecting a lot of, innovative companies, etc. That's where I was going. So I was flying there all the time. So
nice.
But the one thing I absolutely wanted to say, you can use, I think it's limited, it's not now if you fly there, you can use Ubercopter.
Yes, and that's exactly what I did.
No way!
Yeah. So I went to Monte Carlo, and the traffic in Monte Carlo, there's only one road really from Nice to Monte Carlo, and it's a one-lane mountainous road that if the traffic is bad or you hit it the wrong time can take a very, very long time. And I was leaving an event in Monte Carlo late, and somebody said, look, just take the helicopter. I was like, what are you talking about? And so they drove me down, and it was very cheap. And so you go through security, you buy a ticket, and you jump on a helicopter, and they've got this ramp that's got constant helicopter activity, 4 or 5 helicopters landing and taking off constantly with this going in various different directions. And so you jump in, maybe there's 3 other people with you and the pilot, and you fly out over the sea, and then you fly over Nice airport. And so there are planes landing underneath you, and you land on the far side of the airport. So the helipad is on one side, then there's the runways, and then there's a terminal. So this bus picks you up, you drive underneath the runways, and they take you through the sort of VIP back door into the airport. And it's not as baller as it sounds. It was under 100 euros. If time is a crunch, I would strongly recommend doing it. And I'll post some video. It was damn good fun.
Oh, you did? You took a video of it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I want to see it. I haven't. Wow. So see the difference between Alex and I? So when Alex goes to Nice, he takes the helicopter. Well, I was just going to rent a car. So we see the difference of class here. So Uber has it as well. Uber copter option apparently in when you land at Nice, only in the summer, probably only around the Cannes Festival and the big events. I wouldn't be sure. Or maybe also the Lions and the Cannes Lions, which is their advertising. And I would say also something. It's a nice landing. So the airport is built on part of reclaimed sea, land on the sea. Sorry, and you have nice views when you land. You actually can, depending on where you sit, you can see Nice and the French Riviera when you land. So it's actually pretty nice airport to land at. Apparently, also as a pilot, it's a very nice airport to land at, but I've never done that, sadly. Is it a good airport for layovers?
I think it's short on amenities, and to get into Nice itself is a bit of a pain. So I would say no.
Well, there you go. Our last airport of the year, and it's not good for layovers. So let's see which airport we're going to start with next year. We have already tons of stories. We have also a lot of guests we have lined up for next year. But until then, well, Happy New Year, Alex.
Yeah, Happy New Year, guys. See you on the flip side.
Happy travels. Bye.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.